you want, what you want.
Supplies we'll need for this step are an X-Acto knife, tape, a marker, paper clay, printed lettering, assorted sculpting tools, spoon, and a paintbrush. So in this step we're going to give our stone a little more of an aged feel to it, and we're going to do that by adding these areas that are broke out or chipped off or cracked, however you want to describe it. And to start that, what we're going to do is just go along with a marker, and we're going to outline some areas in the stone here and there randomly where you feel like the stone could be chipped away or broke over time. Now that we got all these areas laid out, we're going to come back in with an X-Acto knife, and we're just going to cut out these areas that we marked out. So essentially you're just going to take your X-Acto knife and cut along the lines that you just marked out with your marker. Now that all the chipped areas are cut out, we're going to come back in and backfill all these spots with some masking tape. What this is going to allow us to do by backfilling in, like you can see here with the masking tape, what that's going to allow us to do is give us a backing that we can apply our paper clay to. So every spot that we've got cut out now, just go back in with some masking tape and backfill it all back in. Just make sure that you backfill in deep so that you're leaving a recessed spot for the clay to go into. We don't want to wind up taping it back flush, because if we do that, then there's no point in cutting these spots out. Now that all the chipped areas are prepped and ready, we're going to start adding clay to the stone. You can do this either way. You can start off in the cracks like what I've done, or you can start off on the main stone itself and then fill the cracks in as you get there. Just make sure when you're in the cracks that you fill and cover all the tape. Don't leave any tape showing, because the tape has no strength, so make sure you get a good coverage with your clay as you put it on. Very simple, very easy. Just make sure as you bring your clay around to the stone, to the cracks, that it looks natural, that something over time has either wore this out or broke it off. This process of applying the clay is what we're going to use to cover the entire stone. Now while our clay is still wet, we're going to create the lettering for our epitaph. Very easily done. Just go to your computer or what you have access to and print out some lettering that you like and a font that you like, and simply cut it out like what you see here with an X-Acto knife. Just cut out each individual letter. We're going to use these like a stamp to create our epitaph. I'd like to mention right here, only clay one side of your stone at this point in time. That way you can lay it on its back like you see here to work with your epitaph. If you don't, you're going to have to work with the stone standing straight up, and it's a little more difficult. Lightly lay your lettering onto your wet clay and get them into a position that you're happy with. Once you have them in a position that you like, what we're going to do, using this is a small sculpting tool. It's kind of rounded off on the bottom side. You're very lightly and gingerly going to go in here and press down that letter into the stone. So you're going to just go over the letter a little bit at a time, over and over again, just pushing down as you go. What that does is forces the clay out from underneath the lettering, and the lettering drops down and it digs into the stone. If you do this carefully, you won't have any cleanup work left to do when you're done. You can stamp it in about 1/4 of an inch like you see here, and magically you've got an engraved epitaph into your wet clay. It is very simple to do. It just takes a little bit of time. Now, to add fine cracks to your stone, what I'm using here is like a curved pick, and I'm going to come in with the back side of that and simply just draw out little fine cracks into the stone. Let your imagination carry you, put these cracks in how you like them, where you think they look good, and don't be afraid to experiment with it. If you put a crack into this whetstone and you don't like the way it looks, then you can simply basically erase it by coming back over it with the flat side of a spoon and some water and smooth it back out and start over again. Once your epitaph's in place, just continue applying clay over the entire stone from top to bottom. As you can see here, I apply it in small little patches, and then I'll use a spoon to basically spread it over the area to push it around and get a little more coverage with it. You don't have to be extremely smooth with this because this is a stone, so if it's a little bit rough as it dries out, that's fine. It just adds to the texture and look of an aged stone. Once you're happy with your epitaph, all you're going to do is continue on adding clay to your stone until you get the entire thing covered. As you're putting the clay on, remember, it doesn't have to be super smooth, and you can add all those fine cracks to the stone at your own discretion. So once you get this thing completely covered in paper mache clay, this is basically what you should be looking at, all the way from the top to the bottom, all the way covered and around. All these look pretty decent. They'll look a lot better, especially after we paint it. I know the tutorial on this was a little quick, a little random, but I didn't really think you guys wanted to see me spend a bunch of time just laying clay over that, because that's the bulk of it. We get the mache structure done, then we cut out our areas for our cracks or our chunks that are broke out. It's hard to see here, add in the little cracks here and there at your discretion of what you want to have in it. And really, there's not much to it. That's really it. It's just the structure we get built and then applying the clay over the top of it and then adding in our cracks here and there. Now, the thing about the epitaph, it's an easy idea. You're just taking the paper, printing out your lettering, cutting them out, and then putting them on the wet clay, and then pushing them in. It's hard to tell on the video, but this is sunk in about 1/4 of an inch. It's pretty deep looking. It's got a good look to it. So if you want an extravagant epitaph, you could write up a whole thing, spend the time, cut out all your lettering, set it all in here, and then just slowly push in each letter, and you've got it. It's a great way to get a good looking epitaph into mache clay. Other than that, you could you could draw it out on here, print out your lettering, put it on here, and then take a Dremel tool and cut into it. But it's a lot of, it's a big mess, and it's a lot of powder and a lot of things that come up. You need to wear a mask when you do it. I prefer doing it like this. It takes a little more time, but it's way less of a mess, and it's not hard on your lungs. Now, the thing that I wanted to point out, everything looks good right here. The only thing is on the bottom. And for me, you guys wouldn't have to worry about it if you don't want to. I do. These types of things bother me. It's hard to tell, but you can see there's a gap along the bottom, and I want this to set flush. So when I did this, I started at the top here, and if you remember, all these boxes were hollow. So what happened is right here where these boxes came through, it kind of pushed down and out. I even had this setting on a flat surface to dry, but I think the moisture pulled this up and then allowed that to drop. A couple things may fix that. In the beginning part, if we stuffed newspaper inside these boxes and all these areas on the outside, stiffened that up, and may have kept it from wanting to fall and drift like that. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't try it, so don't know. That's just an idea. Also, it kind of caved in here a little bit on me. It doesn't look bad, but if I was going to go back and redo this, before I started laying the paper mache on it, even the strip mache, especially in this part of the stone, I would have gone ahead and stuffed this tight full of newspaper, then strip mached it, and then clayed it, because it would have kept this cupping action from happening like I have on this one. But to fix this, all I'm going to do, and I'm not going to video it, but all I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to cut this out where it's raised up. It's very hard to see. I don't know, maybe I can get an angle on it. You can see where this line sticks out quite a bit. I'm just going to cut this off right through here. Then I'm going to go back and strip mache it, make it solid, and do a couple more layers of strip mache on the bottom. I'm not going to put any clay on the bottom. You could if you wanted to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to strip mache it again, and then when we go to seal it, I'll seal the bottom first, and we're going to put a lot of sealer on the bottom, make sure we don't have any penetration through. Also, I told you that I would tell you the whole reason we have this hole in here, and you'll see on the next video, is we're going to take some PVC pipe and we're going to come in here and lay it and glue it down into the corner so that we have something for rebar to slide onto so it doesn't blow over in the wind in your yard, and it'll stay in place. Other than that, guys, that's really where we're at until next time when we do paint and some other detail work. We're close to being done. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Hope you learned something. I hope it made it look halfway easy. Anyway, I'll see you guys at the next tutorial when we finish this thing out.
What you want?